Welcome back to the Persistent Managers Podcast, the podcast that helps people managers and their direct reports win together. And I want to go over a well known framework. This is not something I created, it's been around a long time. But this framework, if you implement it today and don't hesitate, it's going to help level up your communication, your email, talking, and how you make announcements. So, as you know, I'm going through a pretty good MBA program while working full time, balancing a family. And I wanted to give you this framework because I found a lot of value in it. And the framework is known as the FAIR framework, which stands for feedback, number one, accountability, number two, inclusion, and respect. So, feedback is about encouraging and having a constructive dialogue to help individuals grow and really improve. And this is a pretty tough skill. I think a lot of new people managers, especially who come from being project managers, fall into this trap where they say, well, I'm not good at giving feedback, or I'm not really talented in that. And you want to replace with I'm not good at with I haven't developed this skill. So it's not that you're not good, it's just you're still learning the skill, which is why you're going to want to use this FAIR acronym going forward. And when it comes to accountability, which is the A in FAIR, you want to ensure that team members take responsibility for their action and outcomes. And I'm going to give you some insight around this. So, the manager I work with now is absolutely amazing. I love this manager a lot. I've given this example before of how when I had reported in the past to several toxic managers in my own experience, I remember one time I messaged him through a message chain like, hey, how do you feel about this project? And he wrote back, well, how do you feel about this project? What would you do? And I responded with, well, I would do X, Y, Z. And his response in this text message chain was, that's your answer. Now, that sounded like a really small, simple, I got it, Paul, common sense. Common sense is not common. But I had never experienced that, which is why it was such a big deal for me for a manager to empower me with the ability to give me accountability of my own work. And that's something I want to stay with you. When it comes to accountability, here's what you need to provide them as a manager is you need to give them established deadlines. Anytime you say, when do you think this is due? You're disempowering that direct report. And if you're a direct report listening to this and you happen to be in a situation, well, unfortunately, you're going to have to establish your own deadlines and establish your own work if you're having a manage up situation. But if you're a manager listening to this, please hear me clearly. You have to give them deadlines and let them own those deadlines. And if you're the direct report, push back. Say, when do you want this by? What do you want the end results to look like? The whole narrative about take an entrepreneurial approach is absolutely bogus, and it sets people up for failure typically more than success. Now we're going to talk about inclusion, which is the I in the FAIR framework, which promotes a sense of belonging and values diverse perspective and ideas. And this is a simple way when I interpret this or I look at this, it's just about making sure everybody has a voice at the table who's on your team. That's what inclusion means. And sometimes we think this is a bad thing. You know, I was working on a project where so many people wanted to get feedback. It got to the point where it was almost 10 people. And it felt like it was out of control. Like I could not make everybody happy. But regardless of having too many cooks in the kitchen, it was still valuable to get all those different opinions and feedback. However, I had to take the due diligence of saying, what's feedback and what's suggestions? Because feedback is something we can work with, that's in scope, and that we can apply. A suggestion is something like, that's nice, but it's not in scope to really get the deliverable and end results we're looking for. Now we're going to talk about the R, which is respect. So when we talk about respect, obviously a couple things come to mind. That's about building mutual trust, understanding, treating everyone with fair and dignity. And again, when you look at this framework, which actually comes from, it's been noted by the Society of Human Resources and Management. This has been quoted a lot by Harvard Business Review, you start to pretty much quickly pick up at how this framework is so valuable. Typically Harvard Business Review does not reference something unless they've done their due diligence. Which is why I felt this was a lot of, value in me sharing it with you today. During my time in working with several different companies, helping to achieve a 98% learning effectiveness in terms of assessment data, what I have seen is that here's something I say: simplicity scales sales. So when I work with sales managers, one of the things I will say is simplicity scales sales. A simple, easy framework will scale your messaging and make it easier for people to quickly embrace and infuse something that can change the game and change the landscape. So this is not going to be an overnight thing when you apply this framework. But the call to action is very simple. Take the FAIR acronym and infuse it into your email writing and into your performance reports and into your one-on-ones. So again, to recap, FAIR is number one, feedback. Encourage open and constructive dialogue to help individuals grow and improve. Number two is accountability. Ensure those team members can take responsibility for their own actions and outcomes. Give them deadlines that they can own and work back from. And then I is inclusion, giving everyone a voice at the table. But no, you have to distinguish between what is feedback, which is something in scope we can do, versus suggestions, something that's nice, but it's not in scope. And then respect, probably the most important one. It's built trust and understanding by treating everyone with dignity and fairness.